Electricity workers in Nigeria on Thursday began a strike aimed at redirecting government's focus to outstanding issues around their welfare, remuneration, and conditions of service. It was, however, a short-lived one, as the quick intervention of a federal government negotiating team made to suspend the strike. Both parties now have a 2-week window to prospect for an enduring solution to the crisis. Now, Goddy J Agba is Nigeria's Minister of State for Power. He was part of the federal government's team that met with the representatives of the striking workers and now joins us. Good to have you, sir. Thank you for joining us on Newsday.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Could you be so kind as to share with us the details of the details of your meeting? What did you arrive at in the end in terms of conclusions?
Well, the committee met under the chairmanship of the Minister of Labour, who is the arbitrator, and we looked at the grievances of the union and agreed that we set up a little small committee to look at these issues and come out with solutions in the next 2 weeks. So the committee is meeting in 30 minutes from now. The first meeting is going to hold, and all parties involved are in the committee. So at the end of it, we'll come up with solutions and possible reasons that will forestall further incidences of this nature.
Let me kindly ask you, were you able to resolve all the issues to forestall a recurrence of this happening again?
We were able to sit down and agree to look at them holistically in a small committee and come back in 2 weeks to agree on the solutions of these matters. We couldn't have resolved them on that table, but with the intervention of the Ministry of Labour, whose duty it is to call both parties to the table, we have agreed to sit down in a small committee comprising of all stakeholders to discuss this thing, and we have 2 weeks within which to come back to the table and agree. Based on that, the unions stood down, they suspended their action, and power has been restored to the nation as it is.
Okay, and speaking of that committee being set up, you're actually part of a bi-party committee that's set up to recommend some solutions to this current crisis. What are your current terms of reference for the solving of this crisis?
Yes, okay. Actually, I'm part of the committee on the terms of reference on this issue. We have 4 major issues. We are supposed to look at the causes, the grievances of this committee, of the unions, find out what they are, interrogate them, and discuss amongst each other and come up with solutions. We are also to look at what ways forward towards forestalling such incidences, if there are any things in the future to that nature. We're also going to be able to come out with suggestions which show that failures in the systems that could result to power grid collapse or power grid switch-offs would not reoccur. Those are the main reasons, terms of reference of the committee, and to finally discuss or call anybody who is remotely or in any way connected to the power industry who has something to help us with the work we're about to do, so as to prefer lasting solutions to these problems. We shall invite.
I'm curious as to what has changed necessarily, because we often hear this time and time again, the national grid failure and, moves being made to provide a permanent solution. So what has actually changed in this discussion? Because we've had this series of interviews regarding this same issue and it remains the same.
No, that's not very fair to the system, to us. System collapses have several dimensions to it. There are technical dimensions, there are human dimensions, there are natural factors that lead to technical collapse. One of which could be climatic, weather. A system could fail if the climate weather is not favorable to it. and also could collapse by human factors like what happened yesterday. We are working towards solving all these solutions, but you see, we can't solve them all at a go. You need to speak to the issues and need to come together and agree on something to be done. This time around, TCN, which is the main operator of this machine, is imbibing new technology and with a view to enhancing its productivity and correcting these things so that if it happens tomorrow with the new technology, we'll be able to stem these things. We also have view that Zungeru, the Zungeru project is coming on stream. We've commissioned phase 1, we're commissioning phase 2 very shortly, this will help to step up power supply to the grid and stabilize it, as it were. Both Zungeru and Kashimbila, both of them will come on stream towards the end of this year. The equipment for Kashimbila should be here in September, and Siemens project will install, and we hope that that will stabilize the system as we're going for further.
So can you explain why it's almost impossible to generate more than 5,000 megawatts from available resources?
We started at 2.5 megawatts when we came in. Now we've raised it to about 4,800 megawatts. And it's ongoing. It's a gradual process. We don't manufacture energy from air. Factors contribute to it. I have told you that Zungeru is coming on stream. Phase 1 has come on stream. And phase 2 will come on stream by November this year, hopefully. We're working hard towards that. The contractors have assured us that that will come to pass soon. Kashimbila is almost done. The Siemens project is working on handling that, and we expect that equipment inspection will be in September, and by October or so, the equipment will arrive in Nigeria and installation will start. So going forward from about December or early first quarter next year, you'll see marked improvement in power generation onto the grid.
Okay, that's good to hear. We know that you were part of the federal government's negotiation team that had to meet with the aggrieved electricity workers. We're aware of some of their grievances. Could you tell us the rest of them? What exactly is the problem there?
No, we've told you that in this instance, the union was speaking about non-payment of outstanding areas of staff after privatization. They also complain about stigmatization of ex-NEPA staff who have been denied employment in TCN. They're asking of a pension payment for those staff as well, life pension payments. They're also discussing the differences between TCN board and the management. That has been resolved. So the main issues are stigmatization of staff of Power Holding Company of Nigeria, which was NEPA before, and the non-payment of arrears of staff post-privatization. These issues are going to be discussed in that committee, and we hope to come out with agreeable solutions to both parties.
There's a lot of outrage across the country, based on the manner the aggrieved electricity workers, easily plunged the country into darkness. I'm just wondering how, if their grievances fell on deaf ears, that they had to resort to putting everyone who had nothing to do with this situation in such discomfort. And it's also cost Nigerians a lot, those who are involved in business and whatnot. So did it have to come to this before this committee was set up, as opposed to probably having listened to them in good time and made these actions a lot earlier before we had to go through this?
No, it's unfortunate that this happened in this way, but there's a procedure in the Labor Act for which you can address grievances. These grievances have been brought to our notice. As soon as we got this, we called an in-house meeting. We spoke with them the night before, and we agreed that we will sit down and discuss these matters. But unions have a way of their own modus operandi as well. That's why both parties came together all night, the previous night and last night before the meetings, we're discussing, and matters didn't have to come to head in this manner, but with this approach, we hope and are sure that it will not come to this situation in the future.
Well, like you said, the strike has been suspended for 2 weeks and a committee has been set up. But taking a cue from the ASUU strike, which is now in its 7th month, what assurance are you giving to Nigerians that this matter will be resolved in 2 weeks?
Well, I can assure you that we'll sit down, all parties concerned will sit down and discuss and come up with solutions, and in 2 weeks we should be able to sit down on a round table and give you and the nation the solution to these things. I'm pretty certain that we'll be able to come around these issues if we sit down to discuss. No matter is beyond discussion. All matters, when discussed and properly adhered to, we should find solutions. I assure you that in 2 weeks we'll come out with proposals that will resolve these problems finally and permanently, hopefully.
Hopefully. I guess what we're trying to get at is maybe some specifics, because you mentioned the stigmatization of the NEPA staff and also the non-payment of the arrears for those aggrieved members who threatened to go on strike. I'm wondering what capacity does your office hold in order to rectify these two specific issues? Is it something that can be done in a fast framework?
I wouldn't want to preempt the committee. The committee is to sit down and discuss this, and if we did not think it's competent to handle this matter, this committee wouldn't have been set up. So I would not want to preempt the committee. It's going to start sitting, and we are convinced that it can do the job. The office of the Minister of Petroleum, of Power, has the mandate to discuss with unions and should be able to solve what we have within in-house. I am convinced that we can do that, and it will be done, but permit me not to preempt the committee for now.
Okay, well, you touched on this earlier on, but we understand that the federal government has firm contracts with only 5 out of the 28 power generating companies, but plans to extend it to more gencos to stabilize supply of the 5,000 megawatts that we aspire to. I'm just wondering if you can give us a more specific timeline on that.
I can't give you specific timelines beyond what I've said to you, but I'm assuring you that steps have been taken. If you are conversant with the Siemens contract, Siemens equipment have been ordered, and Siemens is on ground to do the work on the Kashimbila project. Zungeru has far gone. It's 96% done. We've commissioned phase 1, and phase 2 will come on stream in a 2 months time. You will realize that we raised from 2.5 megawatts. We're generating, as at before they come down, we've gone up to 4.8 megawatts. So we should be able to hit beyond 5 megawatts by the end of December. We should be able to get beyond that, given what progress we've seen in the generation program.
Now, another issue affecting the power sector is the issue of remittances by DISCOs to the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, PLC, and the market operator. The DISCOs are complaining of the failure of some end users to pay their electricity bills, particularly the ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government. The MDAs are reportedly owing over 90 billion naira. Now, what plans have been put in place to settle these debts?
That is being handled already. You are aware, if not, that the federal government has directed all ministries to pay what is outstanding to the GENCOs, to the DISCOs. And there's a program in place to get that done. And it's being handled by the appropriate parastatals in the Ministry of Power. But we can be assured that it's been done. The Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the security services are all paying their bills now directly. And so also the ministries and agencies have been directed to pay these bills. This is being done, and we've seen considerable progress in that direction.
Okay. Now, the privatization of the sector was supposed to somewhat be the silver bullet to save us from these incessant power cuts for the last 58 years or so. But as it seems, even though work is ongoing, the solutions have not completely been found. Is there any more that you could give us for hope to know that in the future we might have sustained power?
But you've said it yourself, it's an ongoing process. It's not a magical thing that drops overnight from above. We're working at it. We have seen developments for discourse, for instance. We've been able to take away some discourse from non-performing discourse and handing them over to other people, hoping that the performance will improve. And in that direction, we are sure that going forward, any discourse that does not perform would be sanctioned. There are mechanisms in place to correct these things. It's a gradual process, like I told you, and I've been sure there could be mistakes in every here and there when you are starting something anew, but I assure you that progressively we are seeing things and seeing improvements. You can even swear to the fact that power supply has improved recently and is ongoing. So we are sure this will go further. With the work we are doing, things will improve.
Great. Now, considering what time it is right now in our nation in terms of the state of the economy, the state of security, and what, with this episode that we saw play out based on the grievances not being addressed in a timely fashion, what is going to be done by this committee to ensure that, of course, like you said, this is not going to be something that happens overnight. But when it comes to these grievances that are being outlined, how can we see a more effective and preventative approach to addressing this, as opposed to having to for these workers to have to resort to all this in the future, because their grievances are actually significant?
You are becoming a judge in this matter. That's not fair. And permit me again not to preempt the committee. The committee has been set up. It will sit down and look at all these things. But if you say what you've just said, it's not fair to the committee, to the ministry. You are preempting. You are judging us. You've not taken into consideration what the issues are, and you are saying that complaints are genuine. Please allow the committee to look at the work and the complaints and go ahead first. I would not like to preempt it because it would be unfair to the committee. Let's see what comes out of it, and we'll take it from that point, if you will, please.
Piggyback on what my colleague just said. Now, if I could just piggyback on what my colleague just said, Nigerians are coping with a lot of issues at the moment. There's a severe hike in diesel and petrol price. There's rapid inflation. There's severe economic hardship. Then yesterday's shutdown of the national grid due to the striking electricity workers. This has put unneeded pressure on businesses in Nigeria that are still struggling to survive. So who's going to pay for all the losses? Who should be blamed? The federal government or the striking electricity workers? This could have been prevented. Why wasn't that done?
It is being worked on. It is being worked on. You could ask the unions why they will go on strike without. There's a procedure in the Labour Act for going on strike and doing whatever you have to do. All these things they have to be put in place before you go on strike. Have you examined what procedure went through before we got to this level? We should be able to also look at the other side, not blaming government all the time. Look at the other side as well. See, did we do what we're supposed to do? Did any other party do what it's supposed to do at a particular time, or get to the point where it has to do this? We don't just jump into a strike without going through the procedure. So I would also not want to preempt the committee, because these are part of the things we are going to look into to find out whether this was done or this government did not take action in time, or the union did not follow due procedure, and then we can resolve that. But if I start commenting on that now, I'll be preempting the work of the committee, which is not very fair. Can we please hold this discussion at this point for now until the committee sits down and examines it fairly? It will be fair to both parties, union and government together.
Okay. So focusing on solutions, we know that the country, or actually the world, is going through a global climate crisis. It's something that has been a topic of discussion from the political end to the environmental end, and the discussion about using cleaner sources of energy. What is your take on Nigerians now turning more towards solar, even though it is not as cheap and affordable as it could be? What are your thoughts on those who have given up hope somewhat in the national grid and are taking things into more of their own hands? Is this something you encourage, solar and other renewable energy devices and systems?
Good. Renewable energy is the in thing. We have a section, a parastatal, which is focused totally on that. Renewable is what is fashionable worldwide now. So going off the grid is not a protest, it's going forward because the world is seeking for cleaner and more refined energy. So solar comes most handy. You will discover that the Rural Electrification Agency of the Ministry of Power has done a lot in that direction, and we have deployed so much of solar to it. Our president at last climate change in Onga last year has pronounced that Nigeria by 2060 will be able to meet the world at its stage on cleaner energies and alternative energy to this. So we are working progressively towards that, and that is the sure way to go. The world is going that direction. Nigeria won't be left out.
Thank
and
you.
It's not being left out now.
Okay.
Now, I would like us to talk
Thank you,
about
sir.
the billing system. Power distribution companies have not been able to meter a large chunk of their customers despite the Meter Asset Provider Scheme and the National Mass Metering Program. To get prepaid meters now is almost impossible. It's not accessible, it's very expensive. Therefore, a lot of Nigerians are still paying ridiculous amount of money for services not enjoyed. So what has been done to urgently correct this situation?
There's a meter, like you said, committee doing that already. Meters are being deployed. The discos have been supplied meters which they expected to install for the customers, and the clients will pay with time. That program is on. It started last year. By the end of December, we have metered 6 million houses, and the program is ongoing. So the disco companies are receiving meters at when due, and they are deploying them to their areas of jurisdiction accordingly. If Nigerians are a little patient, you will see that by the first quarter of next year, would have at least metered 3/4 of the energy users in the country, and which is a progressive step in the process. Metering, I agree with you, is necessary because you pay for what you consume only. You don't pay for what you don't consume. And most complaints today is that we are paying for what I didn't consume. So the metering project is ongoing, and it is progressing fast.
Well, you mentioned Nigerians, are not necessarily being patient, but I think that we are being very patient. And also you mentioned earlier that
No, you are quoting me wrongly. I did not say we are not patient. I said we should be a little more patient.
Okay.
We are patient, very patient. I suffered the same thing with you,
I'm so
pay
glad
bills
that you
as well.
suffered the same thing with me, because I suffered a lot yesterday as well. But back to that, you mentioned
I suffered more than you. You slept, I didn't sleep. I kept talking all night with unions. At least you had a bed to sleep on. I didn't have one.
So may I ask my question
Thank
now,
you,
please?
too, for thanking me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm just going to ask you, When power will be restored on a general basis, because it has been restored partially, and some areas are still without power as we speak. So I'm just wondering when there'll be a general restoration.
No, this is a mechanical thing. Power doesn't come automatic. When you go off the grid, it comes on gradually. As you build up electric energy, it comes on gradually. So you will notice that some sections will get now, 3 hours later, others will come on, 4 hours later, others will come on. Before the end of today, we have been assured that the whole nation will be powered on. So by the time you get back home, I'm sure there will be power in your house.
I hope so.
We sincerely all hope so. Well, Mr. Goddy J, Agba, the Minister for State for Power, thank you so much for joining our discussion this afternoon and giving us insight into the current crisis with the power. Thank you so much.